Okay, so as I'm getting ready this morning, I thought I would talk about grief and losing your parents. It is something that a lot of our friends are going through now. We lost all four parents in a very short period of time. It was like 4 years, beginning to end, and it was insane. Our kids were still in school. It was the sandwich generation, when you're looking after your parents and you're looking after your kids. My emotions, I was a wreck. And I was close to both families, all four parents. And it was a very difficult time. And I thought, I just want to talk about it because I don't think we do talk about these kinds of things enough. And we don't talk about the other side when you get through grief, how life is. And I'm on the other side of that now. And I just want to help some of you that are going through or preparing to go through it. So I'm going to talk probably first about my mom. My mom had ovarian cancer. She was diagnosed. She was lucky in the way that she lived about another 7.5, 8 years after being diagnosed with ovarian cancer, which is pretty unheard of. And I remember when she got the diagnosis, it was the size of a grapefruit. So it was a decent size tumor that was in her ovaries. Or actually, yeah, it was in her ovaries. Sorry, I'm just trying to remember the details. But, and, it was shocking, but she kind of just seemed to pick it up and carry on, and just really kept going. You wouldn't really know that she was going through it until I'd say the last years when things became more intense. My dad ended up getting Alzheimer's and dementia, and he was a very smart man, was a VP of a company. Like, he was a very smart businessman. So when he got Alzheimer's and dementia, he completely changed. And they lived in a different province. We live in Canada. They lived in a different province. So we didn't see all the stuff going on until he was pretty far down the road, because my mom was kind of protecting him. He was, by the time that we had a better handle on what was going on with him, he was already had digressed to the point where I think in his mind he was living when he was in his 20s. He wasn't married. He was living in England. He was trying to get on a boat. We live in the prairies. Like, it was just craziness. But there was a lot of weird drama that all happened in that time. My dad took a car. My mom should never have been letting him drive. But again, and I have to admit, in that time, I was raising 3 kids, and it was just very busy. So maybe I should have noticed more what was going on quicker than I did. But he took a car and was going to the corner store to get a newspaper, and he didn't return until he was found by the RCMP at 6:30 the next morning. He had driven and had got lost and had ended up in a farmer's field. And we were lucky that it wasn't in the middle of the winter that he went. It was spring. So he was okay. But right after that, everything changed, because we took his car keys, obviously. And then he started getting slated into care because we realized, like, this was beyond normal. And then it was right around that time that my mom started going downhill. Like I said, until this point, she had been, kind of keeping it all together and doing things like she's not the kind of personality that wanted people to feel sorry for her or anything like that. So she just kind of kept things really on the down low. It's funny because now that I'm older, I wish I could just sit down with her and ask her more questions, because I find that I feel more fearful about my own, like, end of life. And I think about those things sometimes, and I'm trying not to. I'm trying to find really positive and creative things to do, because I know that's not good for me. But I just still wish I could talk to her about how she felt at the end, because she was just so quiet about everything. But anyway, as my dad went into the home, then things kind of changed with my mom. I'm not sure if they were super tied together that way, if she kind of, maybe because he was being looked after now, that she could begin to let go of trying to hang on. So she ended up, I remember coming over one day, and she was starting to look very yellowy orange, and she'd been going through chemotherapy and radiation treatment and all the things. But she had to get a stent put in and into her kidneys, I guess it was. And I remember going with her, and it was so strange. I'm telling you, we never talked about it. I remember sitting at the hospital, and she never said anything to me like she was afraid of dying or anything. Whereas I feel like I myself, I'm just going to grab my moisturizer. would be the complete opposite of that. I would be babbling and crying and telling my daughters and my son like how I feel about everything. But my mom was just really quiet, and stoic is a good word. So she went for the stint, and it was supposed to open things up, but I'm not exactly sure what happened because I'm not a medical doctor. But 2 days after that, she passed away, and now I'm gonna cry. I don't know if I can talk about this part, but I need to. I'm the one that found her. We were at the point, obviously, where I was calling her many times a day to check on her health and wellness and stuff like that. She was living in a normal apartment, true to her. She didn't want to live in any kind of assisted living. She just wanted to be independent. And my mom was only 76 when she passed. And I had to let her do what she needed to do. She did not need help that way. Like she drove, she was good. She just had this cancer that was eating away, obviously, at her. And anyway, I called her like all the time. And I remember this day because I called her and she didn't answer. And I had this feeling, and it was like 10:30 in the morning, and I called her again and she didn't answer. And then I drove over and I had a key, and I went in and I called 911. She was on the floor. She was in between coming from the shower in the bedroom, and I was on the phone with, they were getting me to do CPR on her. That was probably one of the toughest things because in my mind, she was just leaving her body, so to speak, when I was doing the CPR on her and stuff, and the chest compressions. So she was the one story. I really thought I was able to talk about this easier. It's been 10 years, but obviously it was pretty traumatic. It took me, okay, so I want to fast forward past this because I don't want to stay stuck here, because I want you to know, as hard as that was, it gets easier. And I remember after my mom passed for like a year, maybe 2 years, I would see her I would see a lady that was the same height, same hair, and I would see her from the back, and I would have this wave of like, kind of looked like my mom. And then I would realize, of course, it's not my mom. And then I went through another stage where I felt angry that she was gone. I would see women her age and I'd be like, why isn't my mom here? Like, why did she pass at 76? Because to a lot of people, that's young. I have, friends whose parents are late 80s and 90s. And my two grandmas who are in England, well, they passed now, they lived to their late 90s. So I thought I had another 20 years with my mom. But sorry, I didn't mean to cry, but obviously it's my mom, right? So anyway, after my mom passed, I had to go tell my dad, who was in a home, that I had moved him close to me because I was becoming his main caretaker at this point. And the only blessing about that whole thing, when I sat down and told him, he didn't register it. And I thought, you know what? In a weird way, it was good because of his Alzheimer's and dementia. They just didn't even register. And he was really close to my mom. He followed my mom in the later years as he became more into his dementia. He followed my mom around, followed her lead, everything. So I was a little bit worried about how he would do. And it was kind of funny because he ended up connecting himself to a female Alzheimer's that was around his age that slightly reminded me of my mom, and it kind of gave me some comfort in a weird way. They just sat together and followed each other around. It was nothing strange. It just was company, I think. And there was a familiarity to each other. I think both of them had a partner. So that was how things finished for my dad. And then obviously with Alzheimer's, it goes down not the easiest end because their bodies just kind of shut down and they stop eating. And then I came to my dad. I remember them calling me, and I was working on the other side of the city, and them calling me, and we'd had a few false ends. And I remember being called that they thought it was close, and I remember hanging up the phone, and I was just sitting there, and I was just like, and my boss was going, you need to go, and I was like, no, I think it's just another false start. I'm just gonna wait a minute. And I was just like, I don't know if I just was not wanting to be there for the actual end because I had gone so many times. I had been at the hospital with him where they were, you know, I had the doctor saying to me, why are you allowing him to come back to the hospital? Like, he's beyond, it was awful actually that he said that day. I'll never forget that. My dad had been taken by ambulance, and he was like, he should not be coming to the hospital anymore. And I was like, what do you mean? I don't want to save my dad. But to the doctor, he was like too far gone. So we had to sign something that they wouldn't help him anymore, which was a very difficult thing. But anyway, so then I got a call 10 minutes later, my dad had passed, and I wouldn't have made it driving there from the first phone call, but I think that was meant to be. I feel like, you know, I try to live my life by faith, and God knows what I can handle and what I can't. Okay, I'm going to go back to my makeup for a second. So that was my dad and my mom, and we had come from England when I was 10. Sorry. And I remember feeling when they passed like an orphan. I remember feeling very set loose and not feeling very grounded. And that was hard for me for a little bit. I kind of, when you lose your mom and dad, like I don't have any family in Canada where we live. And I just felt really like tossed about, and like I just didn't have an anchor. And that took some time for me to adjust to that. And I think my faith really helped with that, and my family here. I mean, I have a husband and 3 amazing kids, and I think I found my footing again. But if you lose your footing for a bit, it's okay. And by the way, it's okay to cry, because it is not easy. And I am doing great, believe it or not. I know, I think it's because this is the first time I've talked about it in a long time, but my life is pretty full. And it's okay to cry. And in fact, the only way through grief is literally through grief. You have to feel it. One of the things that's helped me is that I journal. If you write things or talk about them like I am now, it brings things out. It brings them up. It helps them release versus stuffing them down, which I think a lot of women especially like to do. We like to bring our feelings down, and I've been guilty of that. And I went through a stage earlier in life where I became a little bit bulimic, not super crazy, but enough that it created a few issues for me. And I think that was because I didn't know how to feel my feelings. So I've since learned that releasing them is good for you, and you should do it. One way or the other, whatever works. Cry, write, whatever, sing, whatever is your way. But I'll talk another time about my in-laws, who I was also close with, because I don't want to keep talking about how people have passed. I don't want to feel sad. My life is very full of joy now, and it's okay to go back and remember. And it was okay for me to do that now. Can you imagine me talking about this 10 years ago when it happened? I couldn't talk about it for years. It's just so emotional. But I wanted to come on here and validate you, because I feel like we don't talk about this. And I wish that there was a manual or a book or something that just helped you go through the grief of losing your parents. It is hard. You will feel feelings. Acknowledge them, they're real. And then allow yourself to begin healing. And like, you will always have that moment like I had, where I was feeling emotional, remembering. I think it was more for the memories, which they deserve that, right? They deserve you to still grieve, because they were your parents and you love them. But you will be okay. And on the other side, there is a really nice life over here too. So reach out, comment below. I'm happy to answer any questions, or just be here as a friend, as someone that went through it early. Unfortunately, like I said, a lot of my friends are just starting to go through losing parents. So yeah, if you have any questions, thanks for hanging out with me. And if you have anything you want me to talk about, I'm happy to. I have a lot of stories from my life, done a lot of things. Just to give you a quick idea, we've adopted, we lost an adoption, like our child, gone through a lot of in vitro grieving with all that kind of stuff, losing children, Okay, I did lose an adoption, but we also lost like embryos and things like that. So that's a whole other thing. Let me know what you want me to talk about, and I'm happy to share my stories and just teach you how I've moved on and how life has gotten better. Anyway, have a blessed day. See you soon.